All right, guys, we are back for another episode of the Blue Crocus Experience. And today I'm joined by Adam McChesney. And this is a fun one. I've been looking forward to this for quite a while. He and I kept rescheduling. We both had stuff coming up in our lives, but we're here. We're in the studio making it happen. Adam, welcome to the show.
Lewis, thanks for having me, man. Excited to be here. I know you and I have known each other for quite a bit, and excited to see you continue to grow. And huge fan of you, man. So thanks for having me on the podcast.
Appreciate it. Yeah, no, it's been fun. And we were just catching up. Adam and I connected in a SEO training course, I guess, mastermind. He jumped in 2018. I jumped in 2019. We kind of, found each other there and have since grown, doing our agencies and whatnot. Adam's now focused on builders of authority. But Adam, if you could set the stage a little bit for, who you are today, bring us along the journey. I know you're very competitive. I've seen this in you, come through in the stories and whatnot as you have traveled the path. But talk to us where that started. I know you've talked about it on other podcasts. I know soccer was a big deal for you. And you say that, you aren't the most talented soccer player, but you just got out there and made it happen. So talk a little bit about that side of things to get things started.
Yeah, absolutely. So I played, sports my entire life, ended up playing high school soccer and just focused on that. Went to college, played college soccer. And I think those were very formative years of my life, really from the aspect of what led me to what I've done in business. Right after college, I ended up kind of fumbling my way into medical device sales. I worked for a pretty small company here in St. Louis, but I traveled most of the East Coast as far as my territory went. So I went on about an 18-month sprint, just traveling the country, growing my book of business, really getting my teeth cut in sales and marketing. And so I did that, ended up getting on with a company called ResMed. So if anybody's familiar with CPAP equipment, masks, things like that, I sold that stuff here in the state of Missouri for about 3.5 years. The last 2 years that I was there, I was a key account manager. So I went from more of a support role to a key account manager role, grew that territory up to $25 million as I ended up leaving in 2020. And in all those different roles in the small company and the large company, like I got promoted fairly quickly at ResMed, was young compared to a lot of the other key account managers that were there. But similar to my soccer story, at a competitive high level playing in college and even in high school, I was never the best at the actual activity of anything I've ever done, but I was always willing to find strategic ways in order to get the results that I was looking for. And so that kind of translated into business. I got into that course that you were just referencing back in 2018. From 2018 to 2020, I built 200 websites, essentially on my own with the help of a couple virtual assistants, and really just was trying to understand the technical side of building websites, doing SEO, Google Business Profile. At that point, I sucked at actually making money from it. So it was more of like a hobby that I was just dumping money into it, that obviously over time has continued to pay off time and time again. So I went full time in 2020, did it on my own for about 9 months, then became a franchise of Height Digital for 2 years, partner at Height Digital for the last year, and grew that agency before I kind of merged into the bigger aspect of Height to about 2.5 million a year, and did that all in a relatively short period of time. 2020 was at essentially nothing, grew that up pretty quickly, and it's been a fun ride ever since. And then I launched Builders of Authority back in November of this past year. So as I started to grow the agency and do things the main way, as you know, I got most of my clients from social media, from speaking at events, from throwing events, from podcasting, all those different angles. And so people just started to finally say, hey, Adam, can you teach me this? Do you have a mastermind? Do you have a course, et cetera? And so that's where the Builders of Authority stuff came from, and excited to be doing this now full time.
Yeah, it's been fun to watch. I appreciate that you succinctly kind of summed up the journey. It's been a ride, as you and I both know. We've kind of touched in at various stages of the growth pains and whatnot, and it's business is no joke. There's ups and downs, and we all learn, and leaning on each other. And you've helped me. I hope I've added some value to you, but it's having that network to work with and collaborate with is so huge for that
Yeah.
growth. And it's interesting you talk about the skill level. You say that you don't necessarily have the highest skill level, but you just get in there and you find an edge and you run it up. And I think that's really analogous to life.
Yeah.
Not many of us are at the top of our game, but if we just stick
Mhm.
at it, we make it happen and we keep going. And I do want to talk about something that, is now your brand, which is Builders of Authority. Here, you did build a very strong brand on social media. I remember, so the first mastermind that you and I joined back, you 18, me 19, and then Apex, I joined in end of 2020, I think, is when I joined Apex. Might have been end of 21. Yeah, maybe it was end of 21. But when I jumped in, I had seen you talking about it, and a bunch of other people in our network. And anytime when I jumped in, anytime someone was looking for a website or marketing, you were being tagged. You were invariably
Yeah.
being tagged at least once in the comments. You had built a really strong network in there. You had built a household name brand in there. And so, coming from the outside, being another agency owner, you have figured out how to build that authority, and it's really cool that you're monetizing that now and using it as a path to help other people. And I'd love to get into that. I wonder if you could start, like, where did it start for you? I know you said you did the medical sales and all of that, so I imagine there's some elements there, but it's a bit of a different game, I would imagine, than what you're doing now. So if you could take us along the journey of
Yeah.
how you kind of figured out how to find that edge on social media.
No, it's a great question. And so when I was in medical device sales in my first company, like we were the non-household name. So we were the small company from St. Louis where we had to go and essentially like knock on doors all day long to try to get
Brutal.
people to buy our product. And it was not easy because we were not in a lot of the purchasing systems. We were not the household name. There was, I would go to Boston. Like I went to Boston like 18 times in 2016. And there would be a rep, like 5 reps in Harvard Medical School, for example. And I had 16 states. So like I could only be in certain places at certain points. It was just a numbers game at that point. But like I would maximize the opportunity when I was at those events, when I was on those campuses and in those medical schools. So then that way, like people knew at least our name and they knew who I was. Then I went over to ResMed. In the CPAP space, it's completely different because ResMed was the household name. They were the brand name. They had the best product. They had the best solutions. And so market share was like 60, 70, sometimes 80% in some of the markets that I was working in. And it wasn't necessarily like, hey, people don't know who it is. You had to buy our CPAP machine or you had to buy our competitors. You had to buy our masks or you had to buy like 2 or 3 other company masks. So there was not a whole lot of like, I don't know who you are and or I don't know the quality of the product that you're trying to sell me. So that was more what I would refer to as like solution SaaS selling, because we were trying to connect different softwares to make it easier for our clients to make sure that their patients were staying compliant. So then that way our clients, which were the durable medical equipment companies, they could actually get paid by insurance and their resupply would continue to kick in because that's where they made most of their money. They didn't make most of their money by just setting somebody up on a CPAP. So that was a huge part of what we were doing. But as I started to do this on the side back in 2018 for almost 2 years, I was just building these websites, right? And as you know, and you're just putting a bunch of different shoes on the shelf and you're then going into kind of full sales mode and people don't know who you are. And as we all know it, like most business owners don't love marketers, especially cold calling marketers. So I was just sending leads to these local businesses with sites that I owned. And I did a very, very terrible job of monetizing it and collecting money. Like I would send leads to people for a couple of months before I was doing it because I was so afraid of like, what if this works? How do I price it? Like, and I was just making good money in medical sales, so it wasn't a necessity. But what it was doing is it was allowing me to have some really insightful conversations with a lot of these contractors. And again, they explained all their different pain points of why they hated buying leads, why they hated working with other marketing companies. So when I went full time in 2020, I had 200 websites with a bunch of different results and things like that of things in which I owned. but I also knew some of their biggest pain points. And so when I went full time in July 2020, I took about a month to just try to like get my basis. And then I realized like I really need to figure out how to grow and scale this company and sell. I knew the technical aspect. I knew what the pain points, but like I need to go out there and promote my stuff. And that's when I joined Apex in August of 2020. It kind of started to teach the whole personal branding game. And I kind of went gangbusters, with it really ever since then. But the main way in which I did it, which is, very similar to how you do it, which is different from most digital marketers, I wasn't trying to just show up and throw up with the information. I was trying to connect to who they were and some of their pain points as an entrepreneur, and knowing that if more people knew who Adam McChesney was at the top of the funnel, eventually they would reach out and be like, hey, what is it that you do? How can you help me? Which is exactly what happened. But then I started getting clients. I had 30 clients in the first 9 months. And then I started using those clients to go get more clients. Right. But then the whole aspect with Builders of Authority came in, really in the marketing space. People were fascinated by how quickly I was growing. They couldn't put their finger on it because I was not reinventing the wheel, right? Like I was posting on social media. I was doing a lot of content. I was doing online networking. Like I was doing all the stuff that to a lot of people were just like, okay, isn't that how you grow your business? In the marketing space, people want like the quick and easy way, right? They don't want people to know who they are, but they want their business to grow. So in March of 2020, so a little over 2 years ago, I spoke at my first event. And I shared my story and I shared the tactics and strategy of what I was doing. That led to me speaking on like 10 stages in 2022, a lot more podcasts. I started my podcast. I started my YouTube channel, and people just became like fascinated by what I was sharing, because again, it wasn't out of the box. It was just impressive what I was doing. And so finally, after doing this and speaking on it for a year and a half, I had just got so many people being like, hey, do you have something? Do you have something? I'd give the talk, right? And then people would come back months later. Hey, Adam, like I would either get it where it's like, hey, I implemented it and I've gotten success from it. Do you have more? Or I would give the talk and people would be like, okay, now what? Like I need the accountability. I need the consistent coaching. I need more information. And I just put it off because I've started other businesses and had the shiny object syndrome. And then in November of 2023 is when I launched it, mainly due to what I was kind of foreseeing was going to be happening with how I wanted to pivot after we had Murphy, right? And I wanted to figure out ways to like not be so involved in a business that was the size of what I was in, right? And so that's where Builders of Authority came. Quickly after, we launched a course, a mastermind, one-to-one coaching, and some consulting. And then we have our events now too. But it kind of all came into fruition from medical sales all the way through not getting paid for what I was doing to speaking on stage and hearing feedback from people.
That's cool. That's cool. That's a cool journey. And it, I saw those markers. I remember when you started your podcast. I remember when you first spoke on stage. And that's mostly because you shared it, right? And so people have been able to kind of attach themselves to your story, right? And so you said something really key in there. And I think this is what I really want to drill into. People want their businesses to grow, but they don't want to talk about their businesses, or they don't want to be known as the business. And that to me has always, well, actually, no, I was going to say it's always baffled me. It was me actually in 2020. I was talking to a coach and I was like, I can't just post all the time on my feed. And now if I look back at the posts I was making then, I wouldn't be posting them now. But he was like, do the people who are like complaining about you posting about your business all the time, do they pay your bills? I was like, no, they don't. And that was the switch for me, right? And then I've morphed in the ways that I've posted since then. But people don't, they just want their businesses to magically grow. And I'd love you to dive into some actionable tips for those listening. What are the things, maybe you could give like a really short masterclass here on what are the things that, not that you necessarily did, but what are the thought processes behind what you do? because I think that's what people can make their own and turn into something that they can then use, whether it's on Facebook or LinkedIn or Instagram, to help people know what they do.
Yeah, another great question. I think a lot of people struggle with exactly what you said, is like they don't want to put themselves out there for the fear of it not working, for the fear of backlash from family and friends or people that are in their local communities, right? Or maybe even some of their competitors, who knows. But I think on the other side of that fear is the success that you and I have seen, is the success that people see, you know, when they join my program or they follow your tips or they do it from any one of the people that are teaching exactly what we're teaching, right? And in that regard, you just have to be top of mind, right? In most industries, we're all a commodity, like literally at this point. There's hundreds of thousands of options when it comes to marketing. There's usually tens of 20s of 30s or 40s or 50s of options when it comes to local contractors. And if you aren't in front of them when they are needing your stuff, you are going to be forgotten, right?
Yeah.
And so a lot of people default to, hey, I've been in business for a long time. I have a consistent lead flow. I am spending a bunch of money on digital marketing. I'm buying leads. I'm doing direct mail. I'm doing all of those different things. But the problem that we are seeing right now in pretty much every industry is that cost per X is going up, right? And demand for those leads is going down. People are spending less money. People are obviously, with spending less money, saving more money, but the cost per click, the cost per Facebook ads, the cost for direct mail, the cost of doing business, gas, labor, material, it's going through the roof, right? So you have to find out of the box ways and strategies in order to be known as the authority in your industry. And the way and by which you do that is showing up on social media, because it's free. If you're doing it from your personal page, for example, to be able to get the results that you're looking for. A lot of people say, Adam, I have a business page already. Why would I not just post on my business page? I'm not telling you not to post on your business page. You need to still continue to do that. But what I am telling you is it's a lot harder to crack that algorithm and get the same exposure and the same results that you would get in about 90 days from your personal page, because they don't really monetize social media in general. They don't monetize personal pages. They monetize from business pages, running ads and boosting posts.
Yeah.
And so thinking of different things that you can do in your industry, in your local community, that are different than everybody else. And so that might be not talking, like if you're in junk removal or roofing or landscaping, you can only make so many posts every single week about those things without people being like, this is annoying, this doesn't make sense, this is stupid. So thinking of other creative ways similar to like what you and I have done in the digital marketing or personal branding spaces, we're not usually talking about all those things. We're talking about different things that are going on in business, entrepreneurship, self-development, reading book, listening to podcasts, going to events, learning online, right? And that's usually what creates the consistent reminder, because in order to get a bunch of engagement, you can't be boring. And even if you're like, what'd you say?
You can't. People don't want to see your junk. I say that all the time in my group.
Yeah.
It's
People don't
applicable
want to
to
see your
junk,
junk. Yeah,
yeah.
people don't want to see your junk. But for example, like if I make a post, which I did not too long ago, and I said, hey, how many unread emails do you have? Something stupid and simple. It gets 200 plus comments. It's not that the people commenting or liking or engaging with it are going to be ideal clients, although they could be. But it's that when more people are building your engagement and building your algorithm, the right people are going to see it. So you're not always making the post looking for the engagement immediately from your clients. You're doing it to build the algorithm and the engagement so your clients or future clients see it.
Yep.
And so different things in like a local community standpoint, I was just going back and I was making I was laughing because I made a post on our Builders of Authority group, our public group today, is that 2 years ago, I launched my YouTube channel. We just hit 500 subscribers. YouTube is, as you know, it's a freaking beast to try to actually get subscribers and engagement and views and all those different things. But 4 years ago, I didn't create a YouTube channel. It was literally like Adam McChesney, whatever. I was just interviewing local business owners online due to the pandemic happening and in-person networking just not going on. So as I was trying to grow my business originally 4 years ago, I was trying to do it with all the local stuff.
Yeah.
So if you're a local business owner, going and interviewing other local business owners that you either are doing business with, want to do business with, or if you're a drunk removal company and you just love going to this restaurant, you use this chiropractor, whatever, you going and finding ways to provide value and to support people in your local community, right? That's something super, super unique and different that none of your competitors are likely doing, but it's local to your community. So if you are like, hey, I want that immediate like impact and understanding in my local environment, that's an outside of the box type of strategy to be able to do that. The other strategy is like just straight discipline and consistency, like posting twice a day, doing a reel, finding what's trending in your industry in other areas. That's what one of the things that I think is like the most underutilized, underrated thing in contracting for you and I, right? If you post something super, super cool, it's like when I was running the agency or I did the same thing and you look at it like we're doing a lot of the same stuff. We're in a lot of the same spaces. We can work with anybody anywhere. But if I'm a local contractor and I see a contractor in Boston or in Texas doing something, I could easily go take those same types of things and recreate it in my own way and do it in my local community. There's blueprints of everything that's successful. But again, most people just don't want to take the initiative to go put themselves out there, do the work, and then stay consistent with it because it's not overnight. Although I would argue that most local contractors can get quicker results than a marketing agency because, again, the buying cycle is completely different. But even at that, if you're not consistent with it over time, it's going to fall by the wayside, just like getting on a diet, losing weight, whatever other habit you're trying to start or stop. It doesn't really matter.
Love it. Love it. That's the podcast is super valuable. So this podcast that you and I are on today started in 2020 because I had actually the week before everything shut down, I didn't know we were going to shut down here. And I was like, I'm going to do a lunch with Lewis thing because I want to connect with local business owners. And I was going to take them out to lunch, learn from them, network with them, etc. And then I had 3 lined up and then everything shut down. And I was like, well, let's go online. And it was scary. And I think that's my next question is what would you say to someone? Because I know you talk to a lot of people who are trying to break this, crack this nut, right? What would you say to someone who's like, well, I have nothing to talk about or I'm worried about putting myself out there? I know you touched on it a little bit, but especially video, you mentioned reels, right? That's a big deal. And people who buy from you are the same people who see you online. The people who see you online are the same people that are going to talk to you in person. So that's usually what I say is you're going to look just as funny in person as you think you look on video. But what would you say to someone who's like, I just don't want to do it, or I have that fear that's holding me back? What would you say to help push them over the edge or lead them over? Because you can't really push someone to do something, but
yeah, exactly. I think you have to like have a why and purpose behind why you're doing it. And that why and purpose behind why you're doing it has to be so impactful that it's going to get you through like any fear or self-doubt or lack of self-confidence that you're going to experience because you're going to experience those things. So the first thing that I tell people when somebody, I get messages all day long, hey, I'm interested in joining Builders of Authority. How does this work? What do I do? First question I ask them, like, well, why do you want to do this? I just want to make a bunch of money in my business like right now. Like leads are dry. I need to do this right now. Well, you can join the program and you can get that. But if that's all you're looking for, you're probably, this is probably the 10th course or program or whatever that you've like already bought that has not given you the fulfillment that you're looking for because it's going to dry up because you're going to probably stop doing it. So if you are thinking those things, right, there's likely other aspects of your life that struggle in that same format. Probably not the greatest at finances. Probably not the great at SOPs and processes and systems. I'd venture to say you struggle keeping employees or even finding employees. And that's not to say that's true for everybody, but usually one of those other things is exactly like the other. And from that, you have really 3 choices when it comes to this. You can stay exactly where you're at right now and do nothing. And with that, you're either going to stay where you're at or you're going to go backwards. The other option is just showing up and doing the work and learning and implementing stuff, whether you learn from YouTube University, just watching our free content, or joining some type of program and seeing what that can do for your business. But what people have to stop doing, which is the most annoying thing that's out there that you and I see all the time, is people complain, right, that nothing is changing, that their business is still struggling. The same people that made the post 2 and 3 years ago that we all see, right? And so you have to stop complaining, right, that you're not where you want to be if you're not doing something that's simple, free, and easy, right? In all reality. The other aspect, I think, is just getting outside of your comfort zone will help you realize there's more in life than just making money. And with that comes a stronger purpose and why on the initial foundation of why you're doing something. But in life, right, you are most qualified to help the person that you used to be, because you've gone through their experiences. Again, not apples to apples, but that's why I do a lot of coaching and consulting to help the person. And maybe they're a contractor, but they're struggling with marketing or advertising, or they're struggling with something in business. Business is business 80% of the time. The 20% of the time is the personal branding agency, whatever you want to call us, mastermind group, versus roofing or junk removal. We all got to hire. We all got to fire. We all got to do our own marketing and advertising. We all got to pay taxes at the end of the year. We all got to do all that same stuff. And different things happen to different people, but your story can help somebody. And you might be saying, well, if I just share my story, how is that going to grow my business? That's going to grow your business because more people are going to know, like, and trust you as the individual, and your business is a byproduct of who you are. Your business isn't you. Yeah. So when you do those things and you share those stories, that's the easiest place to start. Just being real, raw, and authentic. And then from there, you're like, hey, I need my business to grow. Awesome. Do reels of before and after jobs, do reels of customer testimonials, do reels of networking that you're doing, whatever it might be. That is like the stuff that can drive your business forward right now. But I would even venture to say the other stuff is going to drive business long-term. And you never know, right, what's going to happen in the world. You don't know if another COVID is going to happen. You never know if your industry is not going to be around for whatever reason. Right? Contracting, it's probably always going to be around in some sort of fashion, right? But to say that, hey, I'm building my brand right now for my business because this business is going to be my forever thing is short-sighted thinking. Like if you were to tell me this time last year when you and I talked, hey, Adam, you would no longer be involved in a digital marketing agency, I would have told you you're crazy. But here we are, right? If I didn't have that personal brand, if I didn't build that brand, I wouldn't have Builders of Authority. I wouldn't have had the not to say I wouldn't have it, but I wouldn't have the same authority running this program and having this mastermind and doing these events as I would from the fact that I've been posting now for almost 4 straight years. In that aspect, I have other companies. People have given me equity in their companies because they want my name on there. They want my digital marketing expertise. They want my business advice. And I mean, again, it's silly and stupid, but like I just got a sponsorship that came in for all of my content from a company you and I both know, Go High Level. That's like more than I was getting paid at my first job on a monthly basis, right? So they're paying me more monthly to sponsor my content than I was getting paid monthly at my first job.
That's huge.
None of these opportunities, right, open themselves up without showing up and doing the work. Just doesn't matter.
That's so true. Congratulations, by the way. That's huge.
Appreciate that, man.
So much to unpack here. And I think I'm going to try and break it down into what I'm hearing and what I think is really valuable for people. Consistency. If you're not consistent here, you're probably not consistent in other areas. Your brand you take with you. I think you're a great example of this, and probably the pivot in the last year gives you more credibility in this. You know, you've been able to take your brand with you. It doesn't really matter what you're doing at the given moment. You could go back into medical sales and leverage that too, right?
Yeah.
And then that equity that you get because people want to be attached to someone who's consistent and want to be attached to someone who has that equity that they built. That's big. What would you say to someone who is struggling with the concept of, I'm going to put in work now and I'm not going to see results right away? What would you say to someone who's thinking that?
If you need results like absolutely right now, there's very few things that are going to help you literally right now more and better than person. I mean, I had somebody come into our community not too long ago. He's a pressure washing guy here locally, and he closed like 3 jobs in a week because he posted for the first time from his personal page ever. Like, there was literally people that he went to high school with, college with, people that are in his community that didn't know that he owned a pressure washing company. Like, again, it's not to say that that's what everybody is going to do and get, but like, this is one of those things that, yes, it can take time to flourish and take off and get some of the results that I've gotten or other people have gotten. But I mean, even if you throw a Facebook ad up right now, if you buy leads, if you do Google ads, if you send out a bunch of mailers, if you go knock doors, all those things take time, energy, money, and resources. This is one thing you can literally do right now. And again, it's not to say that it can't provide immediate results, but it's probably one of your best bets and opportunities to do so. But if you are solely focused on the results, again, I'm going to tie back to something that we had just talked about earlier, is if you're solely focused on the results, doesn't matter of what aspect of your life, you're missing the actual boat, because immediate results don't come from what we're doing right now. They're usually like the 90 days previous. Focus on getting obsessed with the activity or the KPI, right? The daily KPIs that I'm doing. Hey, if I want to close X amount of business, I know I got to send out X amount of estimates. Well, if I need to send out X amount of estimates, I need to do X, Y, and Z every single day, every single week, every single month. Get obsessed with those things and the results will come. That's what you need to be focused on. You need to obsess not necessarily on the result, although it's very, very important, especially in business, right? But I found every time I focus on the result specifically and not the actual activity, I don't get the result.
The 90-day rule is so powerful. If I've proven this over and over. You can look at our revenue month over month, and you can see the 90-day cycle, and it's crazy to see, because the results you're getting now are the result of the work you put in 90 days ago. It's a weird law, certainly, that I've found in business, and I think you need to track results but focus on action. You worded that so well, and that's so applicable. Pivoting a little bit, we'll probably come back a little bit to this, but while I've got you here, you've been and done a lot of stuff in the last 4 years. What are some of the biggest personal lessons that you've learned that have translated into business? Because I think it's Ryan Stewman that said business is personal development with a paycheck attached. That's relative to how much you personally develop. I'd love to hear a few of the tough things that you've learned over the last 4 years.
Yeah, I mean, a lot to unpack. I could talk about this for hours and days at end until nauseum on it, but it was kind of what you and I were talking about right before we started this episode, is my lack of self-confidence and trust in myself has led me down paths which I didn't need to do, which have cost me hundreds of thousands of dollars, leaving my bank account and going to the wrong places, whether that's investments, wrong partners, hiring people, or joining things because I thought that they were bringing something I didn't have. I'd say lack of self-confidence and trust in myself is probably the biggest lesson that I've learned. We tend to think other people based on the highlight reel, right? The social media stuff, that they don't have some of the pitfalls and the downfalls that we might have, or that we think that, hey, when we merge these two things in together, it's a perfect piece of the pie. Sometimes that is to be done and to be true. But usually if it's too good to be true, if it sounds too good to be true, it usually is. That would be another lesson. And I think, from stemming from literally all of that stuff, I think is just doing your due diligence on everything. I have been burned time and time again in a very, like, I've been burned more times in 4 years than people probably would ever understand to be possible. But it's because I get shiny object syndrome. I want to go too fast. Simple and systemized growth and scaling of companies is what makes most companies last and actually be successful long term.
Mhm.
Companies that grow way too quick, take on way too much, bring on the wrong partners, do all the things for other people. Like, they grow their business because they want to prove to other people, or they want other people to say, oh, wow, look what Adam's doing. Look what Lewis is doing. Those reasons for growing a company are not good reasons to do it. It will come back and bite you in more than one way. Might not be immediate, but at some point it's going to come full circle and you're going to have to, take it head on.
Yeah, that's true. We often want to let other people solve our problems, don't we? And I know we were talking about this, right? The running from fear is often what leads us down interesting paths, interesting lessons. But you mentioned, I mean, this is cliche too, but I want to point it out if someone didn't catch this. You've been burned or failed more times than people would know over the last 4 years, but you just kept going, right? And I think that's what separates you. It separates people that they get up. They get up and they keep going and they keep making the moves and they keep moving forward. It's a big deal. What has it been like being a father? How did that change things for you? Because you were raring and tearing. You've got Murphy now. Love seeing him in your stories, repping the brand. What changed for you when he arrived on the scene?
I think it just put in perspective like what actually matters, right? So I grew a multi-million-dollar agency, Inc. 5,000, traveled all over the world for a couple of straight years. He was like the first thing that happened that truly brought me back down to reality of
Mm,
like, hey, there's certain things at certain times that matter more than others, but like starting and building a family and your kid or kids are the reason usually behind why you're doing what you're doing, and your actions speak much louder than your words, right? Like, you can say, hey, I'm doing this for the family, I'm doing this for X, Y, and Z, but if your actions tell a completely different story, right, then it doesn't really matter. Like, you're not who you say you are. And I found myself over the past couple of years surrounding myself with people who told me they were one person, and then behind closed doors, they were a completely other person. And once I got out behind those doors or removed myself from those situations, the influx of people that came to me and said, "Hey, Adam, that you did the right thing, right? We knew who you were. We didn't understand how this aligned."
mm,
I had blinders on in certain instincts. I was following people that I thought were living the life that I wanted to have in some sort of fashion. Maybe not the entire thing, but in certain aspects.
yeah.
And so it just brought me back down again when Murphy was born to be like, hey, you need to do you, what's best for you, what's best for your family, what's best for like your mission and purpose, not what other people are looking to do. And that's it was kind of like an aha moment. And that's why you start to see, as you start to put some of these timelines together, of when Murphy was born in September, when Builders of Authority launched in November, to me now doing this full time since March 1st, I started to take the blinders off because there was more important things in life than just growing businesses and making a lot of money and being around people that, frankly, right, aren't who they say they are. Because that's where you start to have a misalignment in core values. You make the money, you win the awards, and you're like, I don't really feel good about this.
Mm,
Something's off, right? And I didn't want my son growing up and seeing me do those types of things for all the wrong reasons.
that's huge, man. That's huge. It's interesting, knowing the conversations we've had, hearing you say those things, reading between the lines, being one of the people I think too that was looking at some alignment things, and it's cool to see how that has, as you said, grounded you. Cool, really cool to see that. Kids change a lot. I wasn't So I started the business. Well, I jumped into the training that you and I both were in August of 2019. Everett was born in June, so a couple months after he was born. So I haven't had that, crash into my trajectory the same way. My trajectory kind of started. It's like the last 4 years have been building a business and a family. It's been a crazy, exciting. I think as Jose Bolaños says, what does he call it? Something chaos, but it's complete chaos and it's great
Yeah.
and we love it. But it changes a lot. It changes your perspective of why are you doing this? What does it really matter? You can chase top
Mm.
line revenue, you can chase accolades, but love to hear that. What would you leave people with today? I know we're coming up on time here. Really enjoyed this conversation. Good to catch up off air before and on air here as well. Hear a little bit more of the story. What would you leave people with when it comes again to building authority? That's your brand now. That's what you have done well over the last 4+ years. I've known you for 4 years. What would you leave people with? That is like a recap maybe of something we chatted about, or just another point to really drive home what we've chatted about.
So whether you are where you want to be from a brand standpoint, you've been doing it for a while, or you're literally just getting started, whatever your, big, hairy, audacious goals are with this or with your business, just know someone else out there has likely already done what you're looking to do and has way less of a track record than you probably have. They've gone through way more adversity. They started from way less than you did. They have way more struggles than you did, and they made it. And I hate comparing myself to other people, but like that was another aha moment over the last couple of months that I've had, is like looking at other people who have built similar type of things. Because I do kind of believe what we're building and the avenue that we're going down, I'm taking things I've learned in different areas, but there's not, for our vision of what we're doing and what will be continue to come out over the next couple of months, there's not somebody doing it in the way that we're looking to do it. There's people out there that have done similar things that if they can do it, I can do it. And if I can do it, you can do it, right? I should have never, in all reality, most people wouldn't have left a multi-six-figure job to go start a stupid digital marketing company back in 2020 in the midst of a pandemic. And I had no business acumen. I knew nothing, but I did it, right? Those are the types of things that sometimes we need to hear to push us over that hump, to be like, okay, if Adam can do it, if Lewis can do it, I can do it. And you might not look at that right now, but again, most people on social media are only sharing the best of the best, the highlight reels, all of those things. You have no idea where they started, what they've gone through, what they're currently going through. So just know if they were able to do it, somebody else out there was able to do it, is able to do and have done what you're looking to do, you can do it too.
That's huge. That's a mic drop right there. If someone else is doing it, you've got probably more that you can bring to the table, and you're just letting your fear hold you back. It's kind of like imagine the audience naked, right? as you're stepping up. That's life. Very cool. Adam, where can people find you? How can they best follow? I know on Facebook you're very active on there, but what's the best avenue for them to really get into your world, see what Builders of Authority is about, and kind of start diving into that ecosystem?
Yeah, of course, you can connect with me on Facebook. You can also go into our free Facebook group. So just type in Builders of Authority on Facebook, see everything that we have going on there. But you can also head over to my website, AdamMcChesney.com, see all the different social links, all that good stuff, and connect with me there.
Love it. Guys, build your authority. Don't let another day pass where you aren't putting a plan in place and taking an action on it. There's so much. There's a lot that you're missing by not engaging with your community, especially for local contractors and people in the communities. Reach out, be that person who's different on social media, and make it happen. Some solid points here, Adam. Really appreciate it. Stick around in the waiting room. I'll just end the stream and we'll wrap up. Talk soon.
Sounds good.
All right. Appreciate it, guys. Tune in for the next one next Friday. Cheers.